All right, let's jump right in. In this explainer, we're going to unpack a really unique text. It offers a completely different, spiritual take on some of the most important terms in Ethiopia. Think of it as a deep dive into the hidden meanings that shape a people and a place.
So, I want you to think about this for a second. What if the everyday words we use, the words that define who we are, actually hold a hidden spiritual key? That's the big idea we're exploring today, looking at one author's perspective that just might unlock a whole new way of seeing things.
So what we're doing here is really digging into this specific viewpoint, this idea that a spiritual identity is woven right into the language itself. The author frames this whole thing as a quest for what they call an eternal truth, a truth that's been hiding in plain sight within these words.
Okay, let's get into it. According to this source, this entire spiritual journey doesn't start with a nation or some big movement. Nope, it all begins with just one person, a single individual having a profound awakening. The first piece of the puzzle is the term male, or Wenedele. Now, in this context, it's not about gender at all. It represents that aha moment, when a person awakens to a higher, eternal kind of truth. It's that first little spark that gets the whole fire started.
And this awakening isn't a passive thing. Once this male grasps this eternal truth, the very next step is to challenge what the author calls relative truths, the conventional wisdom and mortal ideas of the world. By taking up that fight, this person literally transforms into a Fakino. But they're not a freedom fighter for land or for politics, they're a freedom fighter for this eternal truth. So, from that one-person struggle, we start to zoom out. This individual journey brings us to the next big concept, and a complete redefinition of the word Amhara. We're moving from the singular to the collective.
Now this is where it gets really fascinating. Amhara here isn't presented as some fixed ethnic group. Instead, it's described as a spiritual action. It's a group of people who are actively striving, using both their minds, their thought, and their hearts, their emotion, all on a collective mission for truth.
And the author doesn't just pull this out of thin air. They ground this interpretation in a specific source, claiming the real meaning comes from a verse in the Quran, which they say means a precious land inhabiter or builder. And get this, they also argue that this original meaning has been lost or twisted in translation, which adds a whole other layer to this story.
Okay, so you've got individuals awakening, and they're forming this collective of strivers. But what are these striving for? What's the end game here? What is all this spiritual work actually supposed to build?
Well, the goal is huge. It's pretty epic and very metaphorical. To build the house of the Supreme Being. And no, we are not talking about a physical building with walls and a roof. It's something much, much bigger than that.
And this is where it all comes together beautifully. You see the connection right here. The action, Amhara, that collective striving, that's the process. The goal, which is called Bieto Memamure, is the final result, a collective consciousness of truth, a state where everyone is aligned with a single divine consciousness. It's the whole journey, from individual effort to this shared enlightened state.
Now, so far, this has all been pretty big picture, right? Abstract spiritual ideas. But here's where the author brings it right down to earth, arguing that this whole spiritual project has a very real physical starting point.
This is the linchpin of the whole idea. The author points directly to the region of Wollo, specifically South Wollo, as the true Amhara land. But why Wollo? Because, according to this text, that is where the very first spark of this awakening happened, with one single devoted person. That makes Wollo more than just a place on a map. It's the spiritual cornerstone for building that entire house of the Supreme Being.
And that brings us full circle, right back to a question. We've gone on this incredible journey, from one person's awakening to a collective goal of divine consciousness, all of it rooted in a specific place and a radical new look at language. It really makes you think, doesn't it? How does changing the meaning of a single word have the power to change the entire story, and maybe even the destiny of a people? Something to chew on.